here. Hello all and welcome to our webinar, Breaking into a Federal Career Path, a conversation with the State Department. We appreciate you all tuning in and looking forward to an informative conversation on the different pathways and opportunities to a federal career with the State Department. To start with some introductions, my name is Amanda Ramos. I'm the program coordinator here at ABPA Institute. As a brief overview on the Institute, our mission is to help minority students launch their careers through internship placements, where students are able to bridge their academic knowledge with practical job skills in their field of choice and grow their professional development, which brings us to this exciting collaboration with the State Department. So I will now pass it over to my colleagues, Mr. Sahori, who's going to share just a brief message with you all, and then my colleague Aliya to introduce herself and the recruiters that are joining us for this conversation.
Okay, so my name is Aliya. I'm the program administrator at ABPA Institute, and one of the things that is very key in our foundation is advocating for underserved minorities with a focus on Arab Americans. And as such, we're really excited to be in conversation today with Mr. Faisal Khan as well as Mahmoud al-Hamalawy. We'll begin by hearing from Mr. Faisal, who will discuss current internships, fellowships, and careers in the Washington, D.C. region, as well as U.S. embassies overseas. And then after that, we'll hear from Mr. Mahmoud, and we're going to leave plenty of time from 2:30 onwards, where we'll answer some questions and perhaps be able to open it up so you can also have a little bit of a dialogue with our guests. So I will mute myself and turn it over to Mr. Faisal.
Great, thank you, Aliya. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon from Washington, D.C. As you've heard, my name is Faisal Khan, or Faisal Khan, however you want to pronounce it. In America, it's Faisal Khan. Anyway, I'm a recruiter with the U.S. Department of State going on 16 years. I manage the Arab American portfolio among a few other portfolios, but this is one of my primary focuses of my position. So as such, what I'd like to do is talk about the full-time opportunities with the State Department and then go on and talk about internships and fellowships. And I know I only have about 10 minutes, so I'm going to keep this short and at the end, drive everyone to our website, which is where you can learn more about everything that I'm going to mention in detail. So our website is careers.state.gov. So if you don't learn anything from me, make sure you go to that website, and that's where you're going to find everything you need. So the first thing is the U.S. Department of State's mission, right? So our mission is to advance freedom for the benefit of the American people by helping to build and sustain a more democratic, secure, and prosperous world composed of well-governed states that respond to the needs of their people, reduce widespread poverty, and act responsibly within the international system. Okay, so as such, we need talented people such as Arab Americans to help us drive this message home. So one way you can assist us with this is to either become a Foreign Service officer, Foreign Service specialist, or a civil service employee. Those are our 3 full-time direct hire positions. And the difference between the 3 is that Foreign Service officers are generalists, people who may have a major in history, government, international politics, international relations, business, law, English, you name it. Even though a degree is not a requirement to become a Foreign Service officer, almost 99.9% of our Foreign Service officers or generalists have at least a bachelor's degree. Everything to become a Foreign Service officer begins with the Foreign Service Officers Test. It's a general knowledge exam given 3 times per year, February, June, and October, but you can only take it once in a 12-month period. It covers subjects such as US history, government, constitution, world geography, basic math, English. Everything you've been studying since the age of 5 could be on that test. There is a study guide on our website, careers.state.gov, where you can learn more about the test. And there's also a mobile app you can download. It's DOS Careers. Once again, it's DOS Careers, and it has about 900 retired questions from previous exams. Okay. Now let's talk about the Foreign Service Specialist. Foreign Service Specialists also work hand in hand with our Foreign Service officers in our embassies overseas. The difference between the two is that Foreign Service Specialists have a specialty, such as our IT folks, engineers, medical staff, diplomatic security agents, general services officers, facility managers, human resource officers, financial officers, English language officers. So there are about 19 different categories that fall under the Foreign Service Specialist umbrella. The other difference between the Foreign Service officers and the specialist is that for the specialist, there's no test. You simply go on usajobs.gov, find an open position or open vacancy rather, tailor your resume, and then apply for that vacancy. That's how you begin the process to join the Foreign Service Specialist side of the house. Okay. Now, keep in mind, Foreign Service officers and specialists work in our embassies and consulates all over the world, where each assignment is 2 to 3 years long. You have to be worldwide available. You can't say I'm only going to Paris, London, and Rome, right? So make sure that you discuss this with your loved ones and make sure everyone is on board, because you don't want to go through the entire extensive process and then find out your wife or your husband or loved one doesn't want to go overseas. Okay. Also keep in mind that we have some unaccompanied assignments overseas as well. Okay. So what that means is if you go to an unaccompanied assignment, it's only 1 year in duration, but you cannot take your family with you. There are some places where you can take your spouse with you, but not your children. But the vast majority of the places around the world are accompanied assignments where we will provide you free housing, pay for your kids' education, K through 12 in a private school. You will get the thrift savings plan, which is the equivalent of the private sector's 401k. You will receive, the medical benefits, dental, you name it. We will take care of you. Okay. Let's talk about the civil service. The civil service opportunities are mostly based out of Washington, D.C. And once again, these opportunities are posted on usajobs.gov. And keep in mind, entry-level positions start at the GS5 or GS7 level, assuming you have a bachelor's degree and no education, no experience. So if you have a degree plus experience, you can come in at a higher grade. For example, if you have a master's degree, entry-level position for that is GS11. If you have a PhD, for master's is GS9, for PhD it's GS11. And then obviously, as I mentioned earlier, if you have experience in addition to a degree, you can come in at a higher grade. But all of that will be spelled out in the vacancy announcement on usajobs.gov. So once again, make sure you read the roles and responsibilities section of the vacancy announcement, tailor or take some of that language and slap it into your resume without lying, right? Because they will find out during the interview that you fibbed, right? And you will not go beyond that. But one way to get an interview is to make sure you tailor your resume. If you already have a resume, it might not be good enough because every vacancy announcement is different. Every office is looking for a different skill set. So make sure you highlight those skill sets in order to stand out when you apply for positions. All right, let's talk about our internships and fellowships. Our most popular internship It's called the paid internship, and it's offered 3 times per year: spring, summer, and fall. And during each season, it's 10 weeks long. You can either pursue it in Washington, D.C., or go overseas to one of our 270 different locations throughout the world. The good thing about this internship is that as of about 3 months ago or so, it was unpaid. Now it's paid. So it's a great opportunity for rising juniors or rising graduate students, or even doctoral students to participate in this. And it's an opportunity for you to get your feet wet, see if you like what we do, and then go back to school, finish your education, and then hopefully apply for a full-time position after you graduate. We also have some fellowships. 3 to be exact. We have a Wrangell and Pickering Fellowship that will pay for your graduate school up to $43,000 per year. But there is a 5-year service commitment after you graduate. And that will lead to a career on the Foreign Service Officer side of the house. Then we have the IT Fellowship. It's called FAIT, Foreign Affairs IT Fellowship, for anyone majoring in an IT related field. Once again, we will either pay for the last 2 years of your undergraduate program, your junior or senior year, or if you go on to graduate school in an IT related field, we will also pay up to $43,000 for that as well. And then once again, there's a 5-year service commitment after you graduate. Let's see, what else? And then we also have a virtual student federal service. This is for anyone who wants to intern at the State Department virtually. Okay. The good thing about this is you can participate in this from anywhere. You don't have to be in Washington, D.C. or in any specific location. And it runs from September all the way until May, and you will be required to dedicate about 10 hours per week to this virtual internship. And the other benefit of this virtual internship is that you don't need security clearance for this. Okay, so once again, in closing, remember our employment website, careers.state.gov, and we also have 16 diplomats in residence. These are Foreign Service officers, and they are placed throughout the United States on various college campuses to assist folks from those regions with employment opportunities or internships. And you can identify your diplomat in residence, also known as DIRs, on our website, careers.state.gov. There's a map of the United States, and just put the cursor in your region of the country and you'll find out who your DIR is for that region. Reach out to them and ask them any questions. You can even ask to meet them virtually. And a lot of times they'll have office hours to meet with you and guide you in terms of what career is best for you and how to apply. That's it for now. Turn it over to Aliya.
Yes, thank you, Faisal. So I know we have just a couple of minutes before I switch on to Mr. Mahmoud. So one of our questions that came in was, what are the most valuable skills a student can have when looking to pursue a career with you? So if you could be, I know you mentioned a few of the majors that you're looking for related to the Foreign Service, but if I'm just, average college student and I'm trying to take advantage of one of your internship placements or the fellowships, what are you looking for? Is it like a GPA? Is it well-rounded? Is it work experience?
Great question. So we have 13 dimensions that we're looking for in all of our applicants. Okay? These are soft skills that every professional should possess, such as oral communication, written communication, cultural adaptability, honesty, integrity, organizational skills. They're all listed on our website. And you don't need me to remind you of our website again, but I will. Careers.state.gov.
We got you. That's exciting. And could you also expand just a little bit? You mentioned the diplomats in residence. For someone who's unfamiliar with that, what is their purview? And is that something that any student can access?
Okay, so that's a great question. So every 2 years, we have Foreign Service officers who bid on various locations within the United States where they want to serve as recruiters. So we have Washington, D.C. based recruiters. They're called national recruiters, and I'm one of the national recruiters. And then we have regional recruiters, and these are our diplomats and residents. So when they come to the United States for a 1 or 2 year stint, we place them on various college campuses. So let's say we have one in Florida. This person is responsible for reaching out to all organizations, college campuses in Florida, and explain our employment opportunities and internships to anyone who lives there, anyone who's interested in meeting with them. That is their sole responsibility for those 2 years while they are DIRs in that region.
Okay, wonderful. That definitely gives a lot of clarity. We will come back to more questions and answers just after first hearing from Mr. Mahmoud Al-Hamalawy. He will be sharing his perspective on working in the State Department's Bureau of Near Eastern Affairs and the activities of the Interagency Arab Americans in Foreign Affairs agencies. Mahmoud, I turn it over to you.
Thanks, Aliya. And really, this is a great opportunity for everyone to learn from many of the points that Faisal mentioned, because I wish some of these opportunities existed when I was a lot younger or closer to everyone else's age participating, whether it's paid internship opportunities. My age, it was just assumed you were not going to get paid. So, and then the fact that there's virtual internships, that's great as well. So a little bit about myself, and I'd love to open up some more room for questions for Faisal or myself. I actually worked as a journalist for Al Jazeera TV here in Washington for over 15 years out of the Washington office. So I did the war on terror, financial collapse, Charlottesville, hurricanes, culture wars, elections of Bush, Obama, Trump. I covered all of that. And I was almost a beat reporter, if you will, when it came to the State Department. So I was almost like a State Department beat producer. And once you're interacting with the State Department, with the White House or Defense, but almost always it's with the State Department because it involves foreign policy. I wanted to contribute. I wanted to do a little bit more. I thought my background, I'm Egyptian American, if anyone was wondering, but I thought my experience in the region with the culture, but also with press, with journalism and media, would uniquely qualify me to serve in the government. So that's why I attempted to get in. And guys, listen, for a long time, I tried to apply and it really wasn't working out. And I got really frustrated. And the way I was able to get around that, and by the way, I'm in the civil service at this point, so I'm not a foreign service officer, I am in the civil service, is basically just focus on my CV, my resume. But Faisal mentioned the point, tailor it. You really need to not just speak to a machine or robot, think of it as doing data entry for SEO, search engine optimization, if you will. You really have to make sure all the keywords of your experience match up with that criteria that's mentioned in each specific job opening, because you still might do that and might not get referred, let alone get an interview for the opportunity. But it's an amazing opportunity. I look forward to actually doing a little bit more of the Q&A. And what I ended up doing is looking at what do people who are currently hired, what does their resume look like, reaching out to them, contacting them, looking at their LinkedIn. And what I did is I reverse engineered my experience, background, my CV on USA Jobs, my resume, and I reversed engineered it to make it appear that I am actually hitting all those targets because I had the background, I had the experience. A lot of times these openings, you guys have to understand, it's written, it's almost as if you're going to be an overqualified candidate, but they have to do that. They have to make sure that you are very highly qualified. And everyone on this session is actually even more lucky, not just because of what I said in the past, but because the issue with veteran preference, who surely deserve more opportunity than many of us for their service. A lot of times you guys couldn't even compete. I couldn't compete. I mean, with your background, my background, someone who needs to know the region and represent the US government and still know language, you would compete for a job, and guess what? You wouldn't even be referred by law. OPM, the people who work in government, could not recommend your name to the hiring manager, to the government agency that's hiring because of the veteran preference. It still exists as well as it should, but at least now you can compete, whereas they got plus points that you couldn't even earn. Let's see. The other thing I would like to say is this session, it's about breaking into the federal careers. So it's not just State Department. So I highly encourage everyone to not just consider the State Department. It's very prestigious, and I very much honor my opportunity to work here. I'm sure everyone's thinking about the White House, but also not just DOD or Department of Justice. Have you thought about the Library of Congress? Have you thought about interning in Congress itself with the Senate or House or any of their committees? Because they look for interns, and guess what? You're going to earn your way quickly up through the ranks of those, and you can easily work on domestic policy, foreign policy, and brush up your credentials. And guess what? That's what's going to help your usajobs.com CV. So just a couple of thoughts there. Looking forward to answering everyone else's questions. So let's open it up. Aliya, Amanda?
Thank you, Mahmoud. So I do have one question which I feel you are best suited for. We do have several people who registered who, similar to you, are interested in the mid-career shift and application. So I know both you and Faisal mentioned kind of tailoring your resume. Are there any other tips that you have for that, or any kind of more specific advice that could help someone who already has a strong career background and is trying to make a shift?
I don't know anyone that's been referred as a result of applying online. Referred means, 5, 10, who knows, a certain amount of candidates get referred for a position. And then that agency, the State Department or Defense Department, will say, okay, out of these 5, we want to interview 2 or 3. I don't know anyone who has been referred by applying through a resume that they used on a prior position, frankly. So you cannot wing it. I don't recommend that. But what I can recommend is that you take your time. It could be over a week, at least an hour over each day, over a week, to make sure you read through. If you need less time, that's fine. If you need more time, you should be. That's quite all right. Is making sure that you have all those requirements. And please, guys, stop saying that you contributed to something. That's fantastic. I feel for you. But that's not what the machine needs to read. That won't make the cut. You need to have, adjectives. You need to have proaction, verbs, grammar, whatever it is that you achieved. If you are in an office and you went and got everyone lunch, guess what? You contributed to your office productivity. Yes, you did. So something as simple as that, making sure you know how to put it into words, that makes sense. So these are the kinds of things to make sure that you look out for. But every single item that's there, you have to make sure that you provide not only speak to a robot, SEO, optimization, make sure that you say that you have that background, but also give an example. So the breakdown, when you look at the duties, those are critical. But even more critical than that is the essential qualifications that you'll see in the opening. Those have to be met. So did I answer your question?
Yeah, that's really good. And I will ask to hear from Faisal after, because the last question I'd like to ask you before Amanda and I begin the Q&A was, can you speak to us briefly about the Arab Americans in Foreign Affairs Agency, like as an affinity group, just because we would like to hear more? Have you seen an increase in the number of Arab Americans, or just speaking about your experience in that regard?
Yeah, coming on board, it's really our chance to participate. This is our chance to contribute. So one thing we do is contribute to policy, and I'm actually writing some of the press statements that our government's putting out. If it has to do with our Secretary of State in the region, I'm responsible for that. Not by myself, of course, but I'm part of that, and I honored, and I wanted that opportunity. But once you're in, you're able to do a little bit more. So the Department of State recognizes employee affinity groups. So if you're from a minority group such as Arab Americans, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, if you're from an LGBT community, we have officially recognized employee affinity groups. So ours is Arab Americans in Foreign Affairs Agencies. I joined about 2.5 years ago, and after that first half year, I ran to be on the board, which has elections every February. So we are officially recognized by the department. We can even have our own interns. So look out for maybe another opening coming up soon. And what the bad news is, we can't take an official policy, or we can't comment on policy, whether our group, any other affinity group, because we're officially recognized. But we can move the needle. So you asked me about what we do. Well, this past year for April and the April before that, we convinced the Secretary of State and the department's spokesperson to issue a statement on behalf of Arab American Heritage Month, the first ever from a U.S. government agency. And that was done by us. I'm actually the one who drafted, but I had lots of help with other board members as well as the community here who can contribute, who can tell us about, some of the items we want to mention, how many Arab Americans are there, and using previous examples, but also having the hindsight using my Al Jazeera experience to know that the statement is so key, it's brand new, but also having the spokesperson come out on camera with the flag behind them, having that video is also critical. So that's how you can contribute. And yeah, once you're in the federal government, any federal agency, contractor, full-time, part-time, civil service, foreign service, or for an agent with the FBI or any other agency, we look forward to having you at Arab Americans in Foreign Affairs agencies. We also have a LinkedIn account, Facebook page, and we're on Twitter. So I'll see you there as well.
Those are all such wonderful points. And I would like to thank you because it was actually a great achievement and celebration in last April. So yes, thank you so much for that. And Faisal, I'm going to ask you the same question before I pass it over to Amanda, which is just if you have any other avenues or tips for people who are looking for a mid-career shift.
That's a great question. So when it comes to the Foreign Service, keep in mind, everyone comes in at the entry level, okay? But within the entry level, there are different ranks. For example, one can come in at the lowest rank, which is FS06. The one above that is FS05. The one above that is FS04. There's about a $10,000 or so difference between each one of these grades that I just mentioned. No one comes in higher than FS04, but as you can imagine, FS04 makes more than FS06. So from FS04 to FS03, it's an administrative promotion you will receive once you're tenured or within about 2 years or so. After that, after FS03 to FS02, you are competing against your peers. Then same thing from there up. And that's all on the Foreign Service side of the house, whether you're applying to the Foreign Service Specialist or Foreign Service Officer position. On the Civil Service side, as I mentioned earlier, when I was talking about civil service opportunities on USA Jobs, you definitely can come in at a mid-level, but the onus is on you to read the vacancy announcement carefully and tailor your resume to the vacancy announcement. Also keep in mind at the top of every vacancy announcement on USA Jobs, there's a statement that reads, who may apply. If you see the word status next to it, don't apply to that position. Those positions are only afforded to people who are military veterans or people who are current or former federal employees. If it says the word US citizens or open to public, those are the ones you want to apply for. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, that's definitely wonderful points made and noted. I think you're giving us a lot of insider tips, which are helpful. So I'll turn it over to Amanda and we'll continue our Q&A. And if anyone who is listening would like to ask a question that is not being posed, you can type it into the chat and we're happy to address that.
Thank you, Aliya, and thank you both so much for all of the great information. So I do encourage you all, everyone who's listening, to please go ahead and drop any questions you have in the chat. We did gather a list of questions from our student audience that I will just go down and ask, and I'll have you both answer accordingly. So the first question we have is, will representatives from the State Department be at any upcoming career fairs or networking events that students can attend?
I can take that, Mahmoud, if that's okay. So as I mentioned, we have a mobile app, DOS Careers, which lists all of our upcoming events. So I would highly encourage you to download that on your Android or iPhone, whatever you have, to kind of keep in touch with or keep up to date with our upcoming events. That's where we post events that we're going to attend in person, as well as virtual information sessions or career fairs.
Perfect, thank you. And then we have, Is there a structured mentor program? And if not, is there an unofficial one that managers, supervisors are encouraged to follow?
We do have a mentorship program for employees who work at the State Department, although I've never participated in it. I do see periodic emails, department announcements, which highlight and encourage people to, mentor others or ask mentees to sign up and maybe receive a mentor. So we do have an internal program, but I'm not up to speed on it because I never participated in it. Mahmoud, you might have more on that.
I'm loosely familiar with what you said, but that's a critical point I forgot to mention in Aliya's question to me, actually, the issue of mentorships and seeking them out. This is an incredibly invaluable, priceless resource. So if you are on board, whether you're an intern or you finally get that job or any job, frankly, looking at that person that whether they're 5 years ahead of you in terms of experience, 10 years or 20 years, if you have a good bond with that individual, with that person, and you need to actually start that conversation that, will you mentor me? I'd like to have a mentor relationship. And it doesn't have to be formal. It could be a conversation that's once a week, once a month. Maybe it's an email exchange. This is the way that you start building networks and start building relationships. And maybe after a little bit, this individual, your mentor, realizes an opportunity that you're a good fit for, and they let you know about it. But in the meantime, they could at minimum probably be, a resource or a reference for you. So someone you're comfortable asking for a reference might be someone that you are comfortable enough asking to mentor you. And I look to be a mentor to other individuals here in the State Department, whether they're interns or not. If they're not interested, great, but I have that experience. But also, even in my sense, I actually look for someone to mentor me. So I look forward to it as well. There's much more that I can learn from, and I've actually encouraged other people who are mid-career or maybe in their 30s, 40s, 50s, the idea or concept of reverse mentorships. That's when they pick up a new skill from a younger individual. So that goes both ways. But absolutely, guys, if you can look for a mentor and find one, that is absolutely invaluable. I'd like to also mention one other thing. Faisal, maybe you can back me up on this, maybe not. On the issue of internships, if you guys just want to write down the phrase pathways, I don't know if Faisal mentioned that, but the pathways internship opportunity is available throughout the government. So State Department, Department of Agriculture, as well as others. And these are a little bit random. They come in, they open up for 5 days, for 7 days, then they close again. They have a cap once the cap has been met in terms of number of applicants. Those are invaluable. If you get in, you can even get guaranteed 2 or 3 years with a commitment that Faisal might be able to elaborate on. But the Pathways program is a very, very interesting way throughout the government, but you do have to look for it. Faisal, do you want to chime in on that?
Sure. Excellent point on Pathways internships. In fact, I came in as a Pathways intern. So basically, when you go to school full-time, you can work part-time for the federal government. And at the completion of your academic program, if you do a great job and there is a position available in that office, a lot of times, I'm going to say 8 times out of 10, that intern will be hired as a full-time employee or converted to a full-time position, although it's not guaranteed. But Pathways has 3 different components to it. You have the interns, you have the recent graduates, and you also have the PMFs, Presidential Management Fellows. So for the recent graduates, that's for anyone who graduated with either an associate degree, bachelor's, master's, PhD within the last 2 years. Those people are considered recent graduates. For the Presidential Management Fellowship, that's for anyone who has who earned their master's degree within the last 2 years. You can apply for the PMF program, and you can learn more about this on I believe it's opm.gov website, pmf.gov, or you can just Google it and it will tell you everything you need to know about the Presidential Management Fellowship. But all of these opportunities under Pathways lead to a career on the civil service side. These are Washington, D.C. based positions. This does not lead to a career on the foreign service side.
And I think we have a question which is directed for Mr. Mahmoud, someone who has a similar background to yourself. So someone who worked for BBC Arabic, has a master's degree, and wanted to know what the biggest advantage was in shifting from media into the State Department. So how you felt as you made that career shift.
No, thank you. It's a very important question, and I'm going to try not to take too much time, because one thing is you really have to know your value. You have to have that confidence. You have to know that capability. But in that, I very highly recommend to everyone listening in to have a high degree of humility. You have to know how to assert yourself in the right way. Make sure that your colleagues around you slowly know what you're capable of and your strengths. But to the questioner, you have to know that you too have weaknesses. You're not a perfect individual. So me coming in with my background, that's fantastic. But I still had to know how to learn how to do things here. I had to know who are the influencers, who are the important people to put on the email chains. How do I talk to them? And then also how to defend my office going forward. And that makes you basically, I don't know how to put it in a better word, but you got to be a bomb ass colleague. You really have to be. You have to be a contributor, but you can't be someone that people aren't willing to get in touch with. They have to know that once they see your email and they're going to hit send, that this person knows what they're talking about. You can't slip something by them, but that you can also be a good resource. So be be humble, be kind, offer people advice when you don't expect something in return. That's, I think, that carries on, because at some point someone will not like you or not want you to succeed. That might be breaking news or harsh to hear, but a lot of people are not going to want you to succeed. But that's how you, I guess, counter that without having to address it. Your reputation will supersede you. So I knew a lot about the region. I knew about the people in the area. I knew about our U.S. Congress. I knew about the news cycle, and I can advise about that. But I had to learn what is the right way of writing certain things when it came to statements. Although at Al Jazeera, I was the one saying, okay, here's what the State Department just put out. Here's what should go on air. So now I'm at the State Department thinking, what headline do I want to offer? And now I'll offer it to my superiors, to my colleagues here. Sometimes they listen to me, sometimes they don't. I don't have to win every time. I give my view and then I move on. But someone such as yourself, who I'm sorry, I don't know if you said a name, but if the individual is coming from a background in journalism, so you not only know the journalism, but you know the region, and you might even know about production value and being able to record certain items. What's a good interview look like? What's a good background? For example, you have all these talents. Are you putting them in your CV? Are you putting them in your resume? That's what I would highly recommend. Yeah, I don't want to overtake too much, but I look forward to providing more details if that would be helpful. I'd love to.
No, that's very exciting. And I know we have two more questions, and then we also wanted, I think we have enough time to highlight a little bit about previous Arab Americans who have had achievements in the State Department. I'm thinking of people such as Ambassador Katouf, who kind of went through the ranks and became one of the first Arab American ambassadors, and Susie George. So do you feel like we are slowly building a legacy as a part of the fabric of American society? Do you feel like a stronger presence there? And that's more like a personal observation or experience that you may have had.
Absolutely. I talked about my work with the Arab Americans in the Foreign Affairs Agencies group. I think, personally speaking, not on behalf of my colleagues or others, had we been in the previous administration, I don't know if I would have recommended a statement on behalf of the spokesperson or the Secretary of State on Arab American Heritage Month. I'm not saying it would have been accepted or not. I'm just saying I don't know if that would have been the right timing. So that answers sort of your previous question as well from the previous individual who called in. These are good positions. I think there is a distinction between some of the individuals you mentioned. Right now, we are very proud to have a Deputy Assistant Secretary Hadi Amr. I work with him regularly. But we also look forward to having more people in senior positions who are not just appointees, such as Hadi, but are also promoted from within. There's no problem with having an appointee. I think they have a lot to offer, and we're very blessed to have those. And there used to be a time where there were no Arab Americans ever in government. And Hadi himself told me about that example. I think it was 20 or 30 years ago during the Clinton administration. So we're, to be able to have statements, to be able to have individuals in these higher ranks is something that is positive and that we're working towards. And that's why I agreed to come on, because I'd love for other individuals to come on board and become part of the federal government. I don't think, foreign policy has to always have Arab Americans or only Arab Americans, but just as, our policy towards, Central or South America would be enriched by immigrants from that region, and the same thing for Africa. I think Arab Americans can contribute a lot. We don't have to be the only ones contributing to policy in the region, but I think we have some cultural advantages and benefits, and the more of us that are able to contribute, the better.
That's wonderful. And I know that we've talked about usajobs.gov being the main platform to get the positions, and both of you have talked about reverse engineering, strengthening yourself as a candidate. Are there any other tips as far as education if we have like our younger students who are perhaps picking a major or language preferences or requirements, looking at both foreign and civil service positions?
Faisal, do you want to try?
Yes,
So
sorry, I should have said
Tom,
I was directing it more towards you, Faisal.
So you're asking if we have any positions where they can strengthen their
No,
language
sorry. I was
skills?
basically asking, since we work primarily with students, so if you're like an undergraduate student and you're looking to join in, so say I'm a freshman or maybe even a sophomore, is that besides the majors you mentioned, and or language preferences that you think would be, would make them stronger candidates? So a little bit of the younger demographic.
Sure. So our internships, the 10-week internship that we have every year, you want to apply for it halfway through your sophomore year, because by the time you go through the security clearance process, which takes about anywhere from 6 to 7 months, you will be in a junior standing, and you will have 60 credit hours. That's when you will be eligible for that internship. As far as the majors are concerned, we really don't care, provided that you can fit into the State Department's culture and you understand what we offer. For example, if you're majoring in biology and you want to dissect frogs, you're not going to be, State Department is not a good place for you, but you can help us implement, the policy in biology and whatnot. So in that regard, you can join us. As far as languages are concerned, yes, they do come in handy. If you are trying to go to a region of the world where that language is spoken. So for example, let's say you and I want to go to France and you speak French, I don't speak French. You're majoring in international relations, I'm majoring in international relations. Most likely the preference will be given to you because you speak French. Okay, there's no guarantee. I mean, I might do well in the interview. I might write a better statement of interest when I'm submitting my application, which may make me stand out. But if you speak French and I don't, and you want to go to France, more likely the odds are in your favor. But languages are not a requirement to work at the State Department in any capacity, whether you're applying for a civil service position or a foreign service position. But if you're joining the Foreign Service, especially as a Foreign Service officer, and you speak Arabic, Urdu, Hindi, Farsi, or Dari, you can test out in those languages and receive additional points. We also offer points for other languages as well, but the ones that I just mentioned, you will get additional points in terms of languages on your application.
Can you say them one more time for our audience?
Sure. Arabic, Urdu, Hindi, Farsi, and Dari are our supercritical languages, which will give you a ton of points in terms of getting selected into the Foreign Service. But keep in mind, just speaking a language is not be all end all. You have to basically get placed on the hiring hiring register, which is the end of the process to become a Foreign Service officer or Foreign Service specialist. And then once you are placed on the hiring register, that's where you can test out in one of these languages and receive additional points, which will enhance your ranking on the hiring register, because the hiring register is in rank order, which means the higher you score throughout the process, and the higher you place on the register, and then once you place on the register, you can upgrade your points based on your language. But we'll just keep thinking of different things as I'm talking. So if you receive additional points based on a language, expect to serve in that region of the world where that language is spoken, once during your entry-level years, and then once again at the mid-level point.
Okay, that's fascinating. Great information to have. Amanda, would you like to ask any further questions? Okay.
Perfect, thank you. So I have one more from our student network here. So if hired into an internship, is there any crossover where you get to work with different teams or on different projects or even other agencies, or are you limited to your department that you are interning with?
So when it comes to internships, I can tell you from experience in my particular office, I can't speak to other bureaus or offices within the State Department, but when interns come to our office, the recruitment office, we have them work with different sections or divisions of our bureau. For example, they might do a few weeks in the recruitment office. They might do a few weeks on our marketing team. They might do a few weeks in our student programs division. So we give them kind of a well-rounded experience about what HR consists of. But I can't say that's the same with other bureaus. As far as going to other agencies, that might be limited because you're applying to an internship with the State Department, and that means working at the State Department.
Yes, definitely understood. And I guess the only other question we would ask for you from the HR perspective is, since the president had signed the IDEA Act, have you seen a shift internally and yourself? You've been there for 16 years in the kind of applicants you're looking at or qualities that you're seeking with, like, in terms of diversity?
In my personal role as a recruiter, we are more like outreach coordinators. That's not something that I personally manage. That's at a higher pay grade. But I have seen more Arab Americans come into the State Department over the years. In fact, we have 2 people now in our office, 1 intern and 1 full-time person that was hired within the last 2 years. I've also seen Arab American Foreign Service officers do a 1 or 2 year stint in our office within the last 5 years. And prior to that, it was almost pretty much non-existent in terms of running across names or seeing people walking the halls of the State Department. That's not to say that Arab Americans weren't at the State Department, but they weren't as prevalent as they are now.
Okay, that's wonderful to hear. I think that is all of our questions from our side. If anyone who's on the call would like to share anything, I think we have just about 10 minutes, so we can open it up for any questions or comments from the audience as well.
Now, there is a question in the chat here. Can you speak to contractors as well? Basically, with a security clearance, you can come in as a contractor doing a civil service job. My particular office doesn't focus on contractors simply because contractors go through a contracting agency to be hired as contractors for the State Department for a limited term appointment. Yes, you do have security clearance once you come on board, but that doesn't automatically qualify you to become a civil service employee, right? We like to keep our system transparent. So we require that everyone, when they're applying for a position, or when our hiring managers are posting a position, that it be posted on USA Jobs so everyone can see it and apply for it. And then, people are placed on different certificates, which are later presented to the hiring manager to consider folks for the interview and then hire from there.
And we have another question, which is, can you speak about transitioning from private media to Department of State? I think that would be for Mr. Mahmoud.
Yeah, it's quite similar to the last question. It is not easy. It's a different environment, if you will. Some individuals are suspicious of your background, but at the same time, some folks are very appreciative of what you're able to offer. So you've got to want to be able to do this. You've got to want to know how you can contribute. So just being a great, not only colleague, but help everyone along the way with your insight. Reach out to people individually if you think they're making a mistake, or if you think you have a better idea and your rationale behind it. Once you get in, one issue I had is when I worked in press, a lot of times my boss didn't really want to hear anything about what I was working on unless it was just so sensitive that it needed his attention. And once I got to the department, my boss needs to know about everything. So that was a good lesson learned. It's just a different culture, not about what is better or what is worse. But folks, we really need you here in the government, whether you spend a full 20 years more or less. If other communities are helping out their youth and up and coming and folks that are transitioning, and they're able to have more say, we should be able to contribute just as well. The transition is not necessarily easy, but it's not impossible. You have to be grateful for the position that you're in, and you have to fully take advantage of it. I try to do that by bringing up certain sensitivities that I know. Hey, guys, when it comes to the Palestinian issue, for example, here's what I think. When it comes to Egypt, here's what I know, and state what you know as a fact. Number two, provide your rationale and your reasoning behind it only when you're asked. And number three is when people actually ask you for your opinion. So don't offer your opinion until you've gotten to step three. So that's the kind of transition that I've experienced and still working on getting better at. And I wish definitely everyone luck. If you want to reach out to me I have my own Twitter, or on LinkedIn, Facebook. I know you guys don't use Facebook anymore, or on Instagram. Feel free to reach out. Looking forward if I can help in any way. So, and I see Mariko has her hand up.
Yes, she does have her hand up, but thank you so much, Mahmoud, for giving your perspective on that. And I think that you've given us, definitely given us a interesting perspective, having done that transition. And Mariko, would love to hear from you.
Yeah, hi, just to introduce myself, I am a civil servant in the same office as Mahmoud. And I wanted to offer something on contractors. I came into the State Department as a contractor. This is because I had a background in economic development, and I was hired by a contracting company as an economics officer. And the way I was able to do that is that I had a security clearance from a previous job at a different government agency. And I asked the Career Services departments at my university to send me a list of the top contracting companies that work with the State Department. And then I looked up each company and just Googled what opportunities they had open. And I was literally hired within a week based on once I applied, it was very, very fast. And then as Mahmoud commented, in the State Department, there is a lot to do with your relationships with your colleagues. And for me, I realized in my first job that one of my skills within the department is to be a very good networker and to know people and to help people and to connect people. And so then I was, with the assistance of my colleagues, recommended to work on my current position as a public affairs officer, which is now a direct hire government job. So the other way you can get into the State Department is through a contracting position. It's a little bit sideways, and then you can network your way into a direct hire position.
That's really great insight. Thank you for sharing that. We've definitely made a note of that. I know that a lot of people are looking for other traditional pathways, and I know that we have just about 5 minutes left. I wasn't sure. Mr. Suhouri, would you like to give your message that you wanted to share in the beginning of the session?
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Aliya and Amanda. And we are really grateful to Secretary Blinken and President Biden for this kind of initiative that allow us to really bring in the future leaders from different communities. And I just wanted to wish our Jewish American community and abroad a happy Yom Kippur. And I thank you for all of that. And it's been a very enriching discussion. And I could see a lot of opportunities. And I think we're going to go ahead and start getting our message out to cultivate the future interns, leaders. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure and an honor. And I know, Mr. Suhouri, you've worked in the past with a lot of the ambassadors who we mentioned. So would you like to share your vantage point as having witnessed a lot of this in the past 30 plus years?
Well, you know, it's, I think you are referring to the story that I talked with myself this morning. Okay, yeah, well, you know, what I was sharing with our team this morning, I said, you know, on my way to the office, you know, for this, you know, webinar, I said, you know, I don't feel I have done enough to serve the country. And given that, I said, you know, look what the country has given you. You had the opportunity to serve with 3 presidents and had the opportunity to do a lot of things that you could have never done it anywhere in the world. So to make it very short, we are very appreciative of the American dream, and giving this kind of appreciation for the American dream, we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to cultivate and to serve the American dream, to serve the country and to move forward. Thank you very much, Aliya, and thank you, Amanda.
It's a pleasure. And on behalf of ABPA Institute, we want to definitely thank Mariko for helping organize, and a sincere, you know, wish of gratitude to you, Faisal, for sharing your perspective, and Mahmoud for sharing your dynamic energy. I think the webinar was extremely enriching and informative, and I hope that we continue to inspire young hearts and minds. And if anybody has any closing remarks, the floor is open.
Can I say a word before closing? I really just want to say that I'm very, very impressed with all the information that I heard today. Although I have been a diplomat for the government of Lebanon for 40 years, I've learned a lot, but I knew also a lot about the State Department, because 40 years ago, I met my wife now, who was also an FSO. We met 40 years ago in Tunis, and so the State Department has a very big place in my heart. And I hope all the interns that are listening now and all the students will try to join the State Department. That's a wonderful life, a wonderful career. And I thank again ABPA Institute, boss Fuad Suhouri, Aliya and Amanda. I thank you all for organizing this excellent and very, very informative session. Thank you very much, and have a very nice afternoon.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you.
So thank you so much to everyone that tuned in, and thank you all so much for all the informative pieces you gave us. Thank you guys so much, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.